about a year ago, I took a series of train trips from here, actually, is where I started, and went all the way down to Beirut. And there was some hitchhiking and buses in between that, but oddly enough, I actually began the trip. I think the first place I went after we left the airport was this store, and pretty hard to believe that was less than a year ago. But so I took a bunch of pretty amateurish camera phone photos and wrote a lot of email ramblings, and of course Volker, who's always been constructive about things like that, was like, you should put this together into a book and I'll publish it. So we did a zine, and we've got it with this, and there's some pretty funny stuff in here. Probably the funniest part to me was trying to get into Syria, which is, oddly enough, not a big fan of Americans. But I had a visa. It was like the only country. I went to about 13 different countries in 3 weeks, and this was the only one I had to get a visa for in advance, which is not surprising, but considering what we make people go through to come to our country. But when I got to the border, I'd hitchhiked over the border from Turkey with these 4 other Syrian guys that were going home to work from work. They worked on one side of the border in Turkey, and then they went back home to Aleppo, which is the city right on the other side of the border in Syria. And I had been walking down the street in this little town in Turkey, and just basically had all my bags with me, and this car pulled up, and the guy was like, "Are you going to Aleppo?" He didn't even say that, he just said Aleppo, and I was like, yes. I got in the car. It's the only time in my life I've hitchhiked, and I'm glad to say it was into Syria. It's true. And so when we got to the border, there's the passport control center, and there's 20 guys working behind a counter, and none of them are acknowledging that you're there. And so you have to pay for every step. You have to they were bring a roll of dollar bills, and so at each guy you had to talk to there was another couple dollars, and then he would acknowledge you had a passport, and then he'd give it to another guy. Then you have to give that guy $2, and pretty soon I spent about $20, and then they still weren't letting me through. And meanwhile, these other guys are waiting to just go home, and I'm the one holding them up from going home. So I go to the driver, and he manages to get somebody who speaks English. And the guy who's driving the car was like, they want to copy your passport, and that costs money. So I was like, well, all right, that's fine. So I was like, well, how do we do that? And so this guy that spoke English was like, well, you come over here, and there's a counter, and there's this room, and it's really dark, and there's this copying machine in there that looks like it hasn't been used in about 20 years. And I was like, all right, I got some money, and they turn the light on, and this kid comes in. He's about 9 years old. He takes my passport. He makes a copy of it. He gives me my passport back. I take it to this other guy, and he looks at it. He gives it back to me, and then I'm in. So when we get back to the car, I'm totally sweating and freaking out. I'm just feeling really guilty because I've held up these really nice guys who were kind enough to let me hitchhike with them. And I just kept saying, oh, I'm so sorry that I it's my fault. I'm the American. I'm totally the one who's screwing you up, and blah, blah, blah. And this one guy puts his arm around me. He's like, you are sorry, but we are Suri, which is the word for Syrian in Arabic. So we got a laugh out of that, and hence the title of this book, Suri. And anyway, so Volker was kind enough to make this not just a series of ramblings of emails. It's very well put together, and he totally did all the work on it.